Support for This News is So Gay comes from the LGBTQ Opportunity Fund of the Cleveland Foundation, leveraging philanthropy to empower LGBTQ communities. Welcome to This News is So Gay. I'm your host, Ken Schneck, editor of The Buckeye Flame, Ohio's LGBTQ newsroom. Thanks so much for joining us. Here's what we're covering on this week's episode. The Trump administration has canceled recognition of World AIDS Day. Is there anything this administration can do at this point that would actually surprise us? We're going to talk about that. Yes, the 2025 election is over, but there are a slew of LGBTQ political stories happening across the country. What do you all need to know? Gender-affirming care and services continue to be a source of drama in the news. What is the very latest? And of course, queer joy. Where is our roundtable finding queer joy in the news right now? Joining us this week to answer those questions and so many more, Editor-in-Chief of The Advocate, Alex Cooper. Alex, welcome back to This News is So Gay.
Thank you.
It's so great to have you here. Executive Director of Queer Kentucky, our official sister publication, which we should probably put in writing at some point, but I just like saying it to anyone who will listen. Missy Spears. Missy, so great to see you.
Thank you for having me back. Excited to get our matching t-shirts.
I'm so excited for that. I will commission those right away. And joining us for the first time, host of The Gaily Show, airing every weekday on AM950 Radio in Minneapolis and WCPT 820 in Chicago. I've done his show, so he is contractually bound to do mine. John Parker, welcome for the first time to This News is So Gay.
Thank you, Ken. Very happy to be here.
It's great to have you. Our LGBTQ Reporters Roundtable is now assembled, so let's dive in. So when I read the news that the Trump administration would not be recognizing World AIDS Day this year, and in full transparency, we are recording this episode on World AIDS Day, I just would not shut up about it. For some reason, this felt like a whole different level of brazen that made me pause. But my colleague, H.L. Comarado, our senior staff writer at the Buckeye Flame, their response was definitely more, hey, what is wrong with you, Ken Schneck? None of this is surprising. So I wanted to start out from that 32,000-foot flying altitude this week. Is there anything, my roundtable, these days coming out of Washington, D.C. that surprises you, or are you just taking everything in stride at this point? Alex Cooper, I must start with you. Is The Advocate surprised at this point at anything anti-LGBTQ+ that comes out of this Trump administration?
No, not at all. As a person, I have been desensitized to many things around this administration, so nothing really surprises me. I'm not really shocked that the Trump administration did not recognize World AIDS Day. There is a real push to erase queer experiences and lives, and this is just another example of that.
Yeah. John, you cover so much every single day over at The Gaily Show. Are you desensitized in that way? And is it good that we're desensitized? I mean, I don't want clickbait, right? I'm not advocating for headlines that get people fired up, but I get nervous about being desensitized as well.
It's a bottomless well of rage, Ken.
Okay, we'll take it. That's going to be the subtitle from here on out for This News is So Gay, a bottomless well of rage. Yeah, go ahead, John.
No, I've put a similar question to political leaders here in Minnesota and Wisconsin, throughout the year, asking them, is what's happening on par or worse than you were expecting? And every single one of them, it's worse than they were expecting. Of the 15 things in Project 2025, the objectives, they've already finished 10 of them, 4 are in progress, and 1 isn't even started yet. So just 1. So it is. I don't know. Something happens, and I'm still enraged by it. I don't want to necessarily let go of that rage. It's very difficult also to hear that there's one party, the left and the Democrats, that are obsessed with the they-thems and only legislating for the LGBTQ community when we see over 1,000 anti-trans bills. So that's not even the broader community. Just over 1,000 anti-trans bills across all legislatures in the United States and all the time that's wasted with that. And we keep talking about, oh, we need to be focused on kitchen table issues. Well, there's a party that isn't doing that. There's a party that's ripping up rainbow crosswalks right now. They're looking at children's books and deciding whether or not a rainbow means it should be banned or not in your schools. They're not talking about your healthcare and premiums. They're not talking about the cost of food. We do have that level of rage, I think, on the Gaily Show on a daily basis, and we try to temper that out with other, culture and entertainment stuff. But it's not surprising, but I don't want to let go of the fact that it's happening and we shouldn't be angry about it. I don't want to become cynical about it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Alex, I do want to pivot back to you for a second because you have the biggest staff of the four of us. How many reporters there at The Advocate?
So yeah, I guess like 4 full.
How do you counsel them through the desensitizing or the rage, or how do you work with them to keep their focus on what the story is? I mean, it's not to say that you don't have the most professional reporters. You do.
No, I mean, it's rough because you're talking about folks who are like impacted by these policies, right? So you're covering a topic that's already egregious or some new event, and then they're experiencing it while they're covering it. So it's also making sure that they're okay, that they're like taking care of themselves, but that our reporting is still like up to standard and is factual and is still getting the point across. And like just making sure that like the reporters know that there is a support for them with The Advocate, and as an editor, I'm there to support them, and also the company and the publication is. But yeah, just essentially being there and like helping them push through sometimes the harder stories and the ones that are really damaging.
Missy, over at Queer Kentucky, you're covering national news, but same as us at the Buckeye Flame, you're doing it through your state lens. How do you all approach that balance of Trump administration, anti-LGBTQ plus actions, and what's going on there in Kentucky through your lens?
Yeah, it's in this case, it might actually be a blessing that we have such a small budget that we just have to make a hard line in the sand. So at Queer Kentucky, we watch Washington, but we report Kentucky because national headlines, they only really become real when you see the fallout in your own community. So like, people will listen to the nightly news and they hear these big ideas about healthcare and trans youth and all these big, buzzwords. So we like to really break it down and like show them the viewpoint from their neighbor, have the threat of losing affordable healthcare, what it's like to not be able to reach a competent doctor within 2-hour drive from your home. Book bans and hateful dialogue that are just taking place down the street at your local school board meeting. So that's kind of like the lens that we bring to it, just connecting what happens, but through a much more inviting lens, from your neighbor in Paducah or Covington.
That was so unexpectedly and beautifully validating to me because we get that all the time. Folks say, well, how are you all staying sane and doing queer journalism throughout the Trump administration? And my answer, respectfully, Alex, is usually, well, we're not The Advocate. We are hyper-focused on Ohio. And obviously, what's going on in Washington does affect Ohio. But I in some ways see it as like a privilege that we have this state focus because I'm not sure I could handle the entire national piece. Alex?
Yeah. And I think this is what, the glory of queer media is that we do partner so often with each other that because what's happening is so unprecedented, right? Like when it comes to like legislation and these policies, the federal policies. And so it's hard for one publication to cover it, even like The Advocate being national. So it's really great to be able to partner with the Buckeye Flame, with Queer Kentucky, with other groups to be able to cover actually the vastness. So, and it's terrifying that this is what's happening, but it's also affirming that we can still collaborate together, right? And like be there for our audiences and for our communities.
Yeah. John?
I think I just want to second that. Like, we could do our AP Newswire bit, as a daily show or subscribe to somebody, Reuters, whatever. But the partnerships, I think, are so key, to have Joe Reberkenny from the Washington Blade, who is literally in the White House, to have him be able to come on and say, this is the perspective from, a queer journalist and covering these particular issues. I think it's to have Jake Wittig, who I know has been a regular guest here on This News Is So Gay, to come in and give what's happening in Chicago. I think that humanizes these stories, but it also just being able to be in community kind of helps with the processing of that And, we get to straddle at the Gaily Show the fact reporting and also the editorial as a talk show. So it's really fun sometimes to just be able to say, okay, what the heck is going on here? And be able to take that time to process it. Because it is a lot, what Alex is saying. It's everywhere, everything all at once. And it is dizzying.
So the moral of the story, listeners, hashtag teamwork. That's what we do here. Well, let's move on over to local politics because there is so much going on all over the place. Alex, you had such a great rundown recently on races all over the country that we should be watching. What were some of those intriguing storylines that jumped out at you?
Yeah, I think that one that really stood out to me was the win of Erica Duso. She's the first trans person to win a mayoral race in Pennsylvania. And so she won. So she made Pennsylvanian history. She's a community activist, has been involved in the community for years, also has a business background. There are also other like hopeful stories that are still playing out, like Alejandra Salinas, who's running for the Houston City Council. She's has another election coming up. And so you see especially locally, you see these little victories for LGBTQ plus candidates emerging. And even some who they may have lost their race, but some of them lost by only a few points. So you do see this kind of rainbow sheen in the so-called blue wave that happened in November.
We had a real rainbow wave here in Ohio at the beginning of November for this election. I think it was 32 of 46 out LGBTQ plus candidates won across the state.
Yeah.
So it was really, there is hope, folks. There is hope. And I'm hoping that there's hope in this next piece because Queer Kentucky is getting ready for a new legislative session. Missy, you've explained at least 46 times how the legislature works there. I still don't totally get it, but what should LGBTQ plus Kentuckians be looking out for in this upcoming session?
Yeah, absolutely. The big thing that they should remember is that it's part-time. So everything's going to happen really fast from January to April, I believe, this year. They should be looking out for anything that chips away at bodily autonomy, healthcare access, the ability of queer trans people just to exist. And then also don't just watch the LGBTQ specific bills. As tight as our resources are, we are going to be following attacks on other marginalized communities, including, one major concern is there's talk of a proposed bill that would force police departments in Kentucky to enter in formal agreements with ICE. And then that would put undocumented Kentuckians at risk. But also we have cities like Covington, which we just had the issue of the police, becoming violent with peaceful protesters on the bridge. And a lot of those protesters were queer trans. And so now we have, the additional worry of that police department creating a formal agreement with ICE. What does that look like in terms of profiling and surveillance on top of these already marginalized groups?
And the sound that you all heard when Missy Spears said the Kentucky legislature goes from January to April, that sound would be the entire staff of the Buckeye Flame quitting and applying to go work at Queer Kentucky because I think they would love that. John, for the first time, the Gaily Show got involved with endorsements ranking mayoral candidates in Minneapolis. And I am obsessed with this because we get hit up all the time to do endorsements and I stay away from it because it scares me. So I'm excited to hear, why did you all get involved? And what I really want to know is, did your candidate win?
So no one was doing it here in Minnesota, and Minneapolis sets the tone for the state. So we were really zeroed in on the mayoral election in Minneapolis, and our local LGBTQ magazine did interview the only gay candidate in the race. So we invited 7 of them. 5 accepted, 1 ignored us, and 1 we couldn't make the schedules work out ultimately. Perils of airing live at 2 p.m. Central every day. We selected those candidates based off of polling, likelihood of winning. I mean, there were a couple of candidates that were like, okay, yeah, thanks for playing. There is no consolation prize. And we also wanted to have a good cross-section of candidates. And we were, as far as we're aware, the only media outlet in the state to put questions to the candidates specifically from an LGBTQ perspective. And we kind of felt ultimately that endorsements, when done right, can provide quick and succinct information to voters who either can't or won't sit down and go through the reams of information about a candidate. So It was unique, as you said, about it was ranked choice. So my executive producer and I, we sat down and looked at the 7 candidates who we had invited. It was them only because we had extended those invitations to them. And we came up with 3 categories, essentially. Our recommendation to rank was both of us agreed that candidate should be on someone's ranking. Split decision was one of us agreed and one of us didn't. And then there was a no recommendation. We didn't tell viewers or listeners how to rank those 3 that they had. We just said, we recommend you to rank them. And we shared our rationale for why to do that on air to just kind of help folks, go along. The candidate who won was actually one of our split decisions, but the candidates who came in second and third were our folks that we recommended ranking. So we're actually kind of okay with how it turned out, and the mayor was reelected, and he's done some really great things here, Mayor Fry, for the community. So we'll see how this works out in 2026 because not all of the races will be ranked choice. So we're really mapping out our political coverage for next year and how that might work and whether or not we'll do endorsements, because we also reserve the right not to do them if we feel it just wouldn't be beneficial to our listeners. So stay tuned, as they say.
Nope, it's not enough information for me. I want to know, with the split decision, was it someone that you endorsed or your executive producer? Who won? We want winners here. That's horrible. I've never said that before on This News Is So Gay.
I feel like Mayor Fry's record has been solid when it comes to the LGBTQ community. I disagree with perennial candidates, so I believe in term limits. So this would be his 3rd term. And regardless of whether I feel he would have been a good mayor, I draw a line for myself that we should not have a 90-year-old senator from Iowa. We should not have had a California senator die at her desk. So I just kind of I don't agree with more than 2 terms in office. So I like Mayor Fry's record. My decision and recommendation not to rank him was based on that.
Fair. Totally fair. As long as the person who didn't come on the show, as long as that person didn't win, we're good with this outcome. Yeah, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Totally fine. All right. Well, it is another week and thus another round of stories about gender-affirming care, gender-affirming services, and the various drama that is apparently and consistently caused by simply affirming folks. John, let's keep going with you and start with Minnesota. The Department of Education and the Department of Health and Human Services, they are apparently threatening your state. What is going on there?
So I'd like to preface this by saying that Minnesota was the first state in the country to include gender identity as protected class within the state's Human Rights Act. And just in October, the Minnesota Supreme Court issued a landmark ruling for the state in a trans athlete case, Cooper versus USA Powerlifting, that said that trans inclusion is necessary. You're breaking the law if you don't do that. And they actually extended it out to all public accommodations in the state. And I recently talked with Minnesota State Representative Lee Finke, and she claims, and so we haven't validated this, but according to her, no healthcare provider in the state of Minnesota, and apparently we're the only ones in the state thus far, we haven't been able to track any medical providers who have stopped providing gender-affirming care to either kids or to adults. So I'm still in the process of validating that, but that's what Representative Finke is saying. So in this case, it was on September 30th that the Department of Education and DHS filed this complaint and said they set down a voluntary deadline to comply with their rules by October 10th, but the government shut down on October 1st. So our Attorney General's office said that on October 10th, they're like, we're not providing you any substantive response because the government is shut down. It was a voluntary deadline, and you would have to go through a massive multi-step tedious process to actually pull our funding away. So we are not going to even respond beyond this response on October 10th. The government was shut down for 43 days. So now that it's reopened, we're waiting to see how the Trump administration is going to respond. But right now, our Attorney General's office is saying no, and we're going to hold the line.
Amazing. Oh, we'll keep our eyes on that. Alex, passport drama. We're not done with passport drama yet?
So the Supreme Court earlier in November paused a lower court's ruling that essentially stopped the Trump administration from prohibiting gender markers that align with someone's proper gender identity. So the Supreme Court sided with the Trump administration. The majority ruled or decided in this order that it can, like, this challenge, like, again, the Trump administration can continue to forbid anything other than male or female passport markers on passports until a legal challenge is completed. And so what they included in this order is also saying that it's like historical, a gender assigned at birth. So it's just like someone's home country. So the court had said that because of that, it's not discrimination. The liberal court, like justices, disagreed and said that it's just another problematic policy from the Trump administration, essentially saying that it causes more harm.
So, more passport drama, and that's going to continue to be a thing. And Missy, you actually unexpectedly, not that you unexpectedly bring happy news, you always bring happy news, but we don't always get to happy news in this particular segment. Tell everyone about the Rainbow line and the actual good stuff that they are bringing to LGBTQ plus youth.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to be able to talk about like fun things too in this work. So the Rainbow Line, it's one of the newest and brightest things in Kentucky right now. It's a partnership between the Free to Be Youth Project in New York, which is new to us, and then one of our favorite nonprofits in the state, Sweet Evening Breeze, which is located in Louisville. The goal is simple. Get gender-affirming supplies, queer books that are often banned, art materials, and then other supportive items directly into the hands of young people experiencing homelessness. In Louisville, I believe it's 1 out of 4 homeless youth identify as LGBTQ, so the need is huge. So the potential for impact with this program is really high, so we're excited about it.
Everybody strolling over to Queer Kentucky and learn more about the Rainbow Line. It was a great piece. You are listening, everyone, to This News is So Gay. I'm your host, Ken Schneck from the Buckeye Flame. Joining me this week, Alex Cooper from The Advocate, Missy Spears from Queer Kentucky, and John Parker from The Gaily Show. Well, it is, of course, time, folks. It is Glitter Bomb. That's where our roundtable shares stories of queer joy that they are seeing out there in the news. So let's set off a glitter bomb. John, let's start with you. Give me some queer joy that you're seeing out there that we need to know about. And bonus points if it has anything to do with Sarah Michelle Gellar, a recent topic on your show, which excited me greatly.
Oh, we are just beginning our coverage of the Buffy reboot. We have got episodes planned, folks.
Okay, so let's pause here. Folks, even though this is an audio show, we can see each other, and there were fists raised in the air in every box that we had here on our recording. But yes, John Parker, what other queer joy do you have?
So I'm a sucker for a good gay Christmas rom-com. So every year, I'm always on the lookout to see what Lifetime and Hallmark are going to do. And they have officially announced there are 3 queer rom-coms coming our way. Jonathan Bennett, everyone's favorite Christmas gay,
Of course.
is going to be in Hallmark's A Keller Christmas Vacation, which will be on Hallmark Plus. They also have the upcoming The Christmas Baby, which features a lesbian couple. And then Lifetime is actually going to be bringing a Canadian and more importantly, sapphic film, The Firefighter's Christmas Wish, to their network as well. So Merry Queermas, everyone.
Things I shouldn't say on the air. I've never seen a Hallmark movie start to finish. So obviously I have some work to do and I will get started on that. I don't appreciate the look that I'm receiving from John Parker, so I will get on that. Alex Cooper, give us some queer joy.
I'm just really amused right now with all the reactions to Heated Revelry from HBO Max. Like, the internet's obsession with this new series. I haven't seen it, but like everyone is so thirsty for it that just it is wild. And some of like the memes, I'm just like, okay.
Have any of you seen it yet? I have not watched an episode of this. You've seen it, John? We should watch it or no?
Narratively, there's some challenges 6 months later. So I will say that 6 months later, that it really jumps in time 6 months later. Like, it moves very, very fast. But I will say, I looked this up, the books are sold out everywhere. So there's something about this series that you cannot find a single version of this book. You can't find it on Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, Thrift Books. I mean, it is wild, the popularity of this series. So it doesn't surprise me that the the internet's blowing up over the HBO Max version.
Heated rivalry. By the way, from here on out, whenever I don't like something, but I don't want to say so, I'm just going to respond in any and all situations with, well, narratively, it has some challenges. That's going to be my new refrain that I use in any, did you like that restaurant? Narratively, it had some challenges. So thank you for that, John. Missy Spears, what queer joy are you seeing out there?
Oh man, I came in with an idea and then y'all started talking about Buffy, which just sent me through the roof. And then I was like, maybe it's cuffing season, but I'm going to play it safe. And I'm going to go with, there's a new market open in my town called the Outsiders Artisan Market. It's part of a book chain up here in Northern Kentucky. And one of the staff members is a young trans guy who's been with the organization for years. And he convinced the owner to let him take one of the locations and turn it into a queer art market where they still serve coffee. But instead of, all the books that they had before, they have about a dozen different queer vendors in there and they're selling their goods. And I was able to stop in today. It's incredible. It's in Dayton, Kentucky, across from Cincinnati, a few streets down from Taylor Swift Drive. Highly recommend it.
I wish because Missy knows this. I actually spent my Thanksgiving in Kentucky, in Maysville, Kentucky, which, let's talk offline about that, Missy. That was an experience for me, but not so far from this queer market. Tell us the name again.
It's called Outsiders Artisan Market. And if you follow them on social, they're under Roebling Books and Coffee Chain.
Amazing. All right, John, pick us up on the way down and let's head on over. That's going to be very exciting.
Deal.
I love it. All right. Well, we do have a quick queer culture question for everyone this week because we are deep in the throes of Wicked for Good mania. I am even teaching on Wednesday morning. I'm now a certified spin instructor because apparently I needed another thing to do, and I'm teaching a Wicked ride on Wednesday morning. So for our quick queer culture question, I need to know, which Wicked character are you? And if Wicked is not your thing, I will allow you to pivot to The Wizard of Oz. Which character are you drawn to, Alex Cooper?
I would say Tracy Gilchrist from Holding Space. Let's do the expanded universe because she is a dear friend. And yeah, that was great. I will never forget that phone call when she was like, I've become a meme.
That is amazing. Which character, Missy Spears, are you drawn to in Wicked and or The Wizard of Oz?
Glinda in her vengeance arc.
Love it. I feel that deeply. And John Parker, which character?
I'm actually a very little known speculative character living in Oz who gives Prince Fiero his queer awakening.
Okay. Yeah, narratively that had some challenges, now, John, but we'll talk about that later.
If the judges don't accept that answer, then yes. I'm the boy in the library in the first movie who instantly turned gay after dancing Prince Fiero winked at him.
We were all that character, oddly even Missy Spears, so I feel that deeply. Well, my friends, we certainly want to hear what you all are working on. Alex Cooper, what's coming up for you?
Yeah, so we're working on our next print issue. So we are in the throes of that. So yeah, be on the lookout, January, February.
Looking forward to it. John Parker, what's coming up for you at the Gaily Show?
So we're doing a look back at the year that was, both good and bad. We've got Alana Masad, our author and critic, who's going to be back with some queer holiday book recommendations. And then we are turning 1 year old on January 6th as a daily program. We used to be a weekly program, so get ready for some special anniversary coverage.
I am excited. I just want to be invited to a Buffy segment. If we could just get me on there, I would be thrilled.
I'm writing that down, Ken, because they're coming.
I'm excited. Missy Spears, what's coming up for you all at Queer Kentucky?
So we're doing, surprise, surprise, a series of stories that are coming out that detail the federal impact of this past year on queer Kentuckians. Some of the stories that we're diving into are the 35 rural hospitals that are set to be closed due to the big, beautiful bill, which I cannot stop thinking of Bill Clinton now because of that meme when I say that. But we did a health survey last year with UK that we were able to get IRB approved. And because of that survey, we're actually going to dive into the data on the people in those 35 counties that are going to be affected and really talk about what queer people and what queer demographics are going to be hit the most by that.
Incredible work. Well, that's all the time that we have for this week's episode. I want to thank my panel, Editor-in-Chief of The Advocate, Alex Cooper. Please keep doing what you're doing over there.
Thank you for having me.
Executive Director of Queer Kentucky, Missy Spears. Missy, always a pleasure.
Absolutely.
And host of The Gaily Show, airing every weekday on AM950 Radio in Minneapolis and WCPT 820 in Chicago, John Parker. A triumphant first episode for you, sir.
I hope narratively it didn't have any challenges.
We'll talk about that later off the air. Again, listeners, I am Ken Schneck, editor of The Buckeye Flame. And if you liked this episode of This News is So Gay, please share it with a friend. Subscribe so that you do not miss out on our next episode. Send an email on over to editor@thebuckeyeflame.com. That's me, to let us know your thoughts and rate and review us on your favorite podcasting app. This News is So Gay is a product of The Buckeye Flame, a nonprofit newsroom. Become a recurring donor today for as little as $12.50 a month, which truly enables programming like this and its news match, so every single dollar until the end of the year is doubled, which makes a huge difference for a scrappy queer newsroom like ours. In the meantime, read LGBTQ plus news, share the stories of LGBTQ plus reporters, and support the work of LGBTQ plus newsrooms. Until next week, friends.